All right. Welcome to the Yoga Well podcast. I'm Chase Bossart. Today we're going to talk about one-on-one instruction and how that is the centerpiece of Mr. Desikachar's teachings and how important having a personal mentor is in this process. And to help me with that, I have longtime Vini Yoga student and current student advisor for the Yoga Well Institute, Meg Bratt. Meg, I know you have been around the yoga industry and you've been doing all kinds of stuff in yoga for a long time, and I'm really interested in your story. How did you get into yoga and how did that happen?
Hi, Chase. Thanks. I started yoga when I was in college in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a girlfriend took me, my roommate took me. I was so underprepared. It was like a Bikram class. It was sweaty. I had to borrow shorts. It was like the first athletic ability, anything I had done in a really long time, and it made me feel wonderful. And I got addicted and eventually relocated to Colorado and found another studio there and was like cleaning for trade. And there was like this very clear message one night while I was wax on, wax off at the dojo. And it said, take the teacher training. And I didn't know that I wanted to, sure. And I did it because I was interested in figuring out why I felt different, what was really going on there. Because I think there was something more than just physical outlet that was giving me some perspective. And so I took teacher training and started teaching in 2005. It was very studio based.
I was going to just say, I think that's something so interesting about why people are motivated to take trainings. And it's very often that we go to a yoga class and it makes us feel different and we like it. But after we've been doing it for 2 or 3 or 6 months, we look at our life and some fundamental things are different. And it's like, whoa, why is this happening? How is this happening? And finally you get to the point where you're like, it's the yoga. And then you want to know like, well, why? And I have to say that is one of the real strengths of what Vini Yoga provides is it really provides a super fundamental, clear, well, this is how this process works. And this is why you're quitting your job to follow your dream, or why you all of a sudden are communicating with your spouse in such a different way, or why you're able to actually show up for your daughter in a different way than et cetera. And that
so true.
Interesting.
I thought I'd get that out of teacher training. I can't really say that I did. I mean, a 200-hour teacher training is rough because they really teach you to teach. They don't really, well, at least such programs that I were in and what I hear a lot from students, there's something still lacking there in the seeker element, right? That even after teaching for 5 years, and taking a lot of workshops and managing studios, running teacher trainings. I was like very, very active in my community in yoga, but I still didn't understand the why and the how. I'm going to say at this point at all. I mean, I thought I did, but then I had a lecture with you and Mr. Desikachar, and the whole time sitting in this big lecture hall, like they are calling me out on all of my stuff. This isn't the yoga I know. It was eye-opening. I needed to hear it at the time because I was kind of out of a relationship and not knowing what I was doing. And Vini Yoga, Chase, you and Mr. Desikachar framed yoga philosophy for me in a way that I knew you guys had the key to unlock really and explain why things were changing, how they were changing, how to get more of it. So I was sold. Actually, I wasn't really sold. I wasn't sold. I was dumbfounded at first. And I took some literature and I was like, oh, he's in San Francisco. I'm in Denver. Okay. And went on with my life. And the same weekend, maybe it was like Monday morning, I took some friends to the airport and dropped them off and looked over my shoulder, and at the sky cap was Chase and Mr. Desikachar. And like my heart wanted to jump out of the car and bow at Sir's feet for like, I don't know this guy. I know the book he wrote, one of the books he wrote, but there was something visceral there. And that's not who I am. Like, I'm not going to run out and make a spectacle of myself. I'm much quieter than that. So I just had this moment of, oh, I need to look again. That was a really clear sign.
Mr. Desikachar.
And I'm so glad.
Mr. Desikachar was such a profoundly normal, nice, regular person. And yet there was just such a feeling of extraordinariness around him. So he put you completely at ease, and it was amazing to watch him be human. Yeah. You know, that yoga journal conference was, I think, 2009. And at the time, Mr. Desikachar was having some health problems. And so when I showed up at the conference, when in his later years, when Mr. Desikachar was in town or in the United States, oftentimes I would be his driver / gopher, etc. It just was amazing. It was so wonderful. And so I showed up at the conference really to drive him around or get whatever he needed. I also had a role teaching in the conference. And the first thing that he taught, he said, Chase, why don't you come up on stage with me? I had no preparation. I had no idea that this was going to happen. He said, and then he said, get another chair. He put a chair next to me. And then he started to give some of the teaching. And after a few minutes, he turned to me and he said, now, my friend will add some spice.
I clearly recall this. And it was a beautiful moment because there was, my first exposure to mentoring was there between you and Mr. Desikachar, where he was very clearly the teacher. He was the keynote speaker and such a trusting, really a loving relationship between the two of you.
Yeah.
And this slight humor of Chase, add some spice. And this back and forth dynamic that really exhibited so much, not only about the content and the depth of content, but also the beauty of that relationship. And mentoring in general, the relationship of mentoring.
He was definitely a father to me, and the kind of father that you want to have, in terms of he was willing, when appropriate, to kick your butt. I've been on the receiving end a few times. It's highly unpleasant, I would like to report. And he is also extremely nourishing and very just capable of beaming you with love. And like any good parent, he really was thinking deeply about what are the experiences that this person needs for their next step. So I really had no knowing that I was going to be on stage. And I had no time to prepare any of the concepts. He didn't tell me what he was going to talk about at all. And he basically would then say, okay, please add some spice. And he actually did that for the entire conference. I was on the stage with him for everything except, I think, his keynote address. And it was one of those moments for me as a teacher where I felt like, oh, I can do this, because here I am with the person that I actually care and respect about the most in the world sitting next to me, and I'm doing the thing that I absolutely love and adore more than anything, which is teach yoga. And we're having this banter back and forth. And it seems that he likes what I'm saying.
This is so clear. This makes so much sense also with the way that you teach, because there's such a richness to even just going through sutras. And of course, you teach so many more texts. But when I first met you and Mr. Desikachar with Sutras in Everyday Life, and it just reminds me of how you teach. It's practical, and it's meant to be addressed to the individual who's there. So you'll talk about a subject. I mean, like, how many trainings have I been through with you, Chase?
That's true.
500 hour in the yoga therapist training. It's been a few years.
Yes.
Studying with you since 2010, right? January 2010 is when I started with you, right after that conference. And you make sure that what you're teaching is to who is present in that moment. And it's not a lecture. And I have a hard time using that when I discuss your teaching with people that are interested in programs or talking about the tradition. It's really the beauty of Vinaya Yoga, and what shifted so much of my practice is individualized. You know, we've got these great philosophical concepts and this amazing text that is a user's manual for how we're meant to live our lives. And it's not a one size fits all. It's you.
Yeah.
And that's the way you teach. And then the mentoring relationship and the personal practice brings such a vitality and individualization that really allows for all the change in a way that I didn't understand in yoga before, because it was like, oh, modify your practice if you need. You're going to take this big group class and whatever the teacher's going to teach. But doing it on a regular basis, things do change. But man, is it a different world when it's really fine-tuned.
Yeah. You know, there's so many interesting ideas in what you just said. I want to address a couple. One of them is, the hardest thing for me to do is to give those little write-ups about what I'm going to teach beforehand, right? So, like, you know, if you go somewhere for a weekend, or if they're going to give a talk at a conference or something, you're supposed to say what it is that you're going to talk about. I find it so hard to actually come up with that. But when I get in the room and the people are there in the room, oh, it's super clear. It's like, oh, ding, 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 ding. Here's this idea, that idea. This is where we're going to go next. Then we'll get some feedback from people, and we'll see how the ideas are landing with everybody. And then that will allow us to understand what is the next step for the unfolding of this material, and what will make it really practical and meaningful for the person or for the group of people. So, doing the write-ups of, like, even like now, for our institute, the Yoga World Institute, I have to do these 2-hour workshops, and it's like what the student will get, what the student will learn. Okay, well, I can say some things, etc. But actually, really what they'll get is what they need when they're in on the workshop. And I don't know how you put that on a website page, etc., in any kind of, believable way. It's just like, no, please.
It's a goal, but it's like, once it's experiential and the people that are there really do craft and co-create the experience with you.
Yeah.
So clear. Yeah.
So the other thing I want to address there is that, in our yoga industry, with quotation marks, for people who want to go deeper, the pathways are kind of limited. So it really is limited to teacher training or workshops or some combination of that. And, if you go to a teacher training, they're trying to teach you to teach. And in 200 hours, it's such a drop in the bucket in terms of what you actually need to know about what is yoga, that then, you get done with the 200-hour teacher training program, and basically you have some idea of yoga and how to, design it, etc., get people to do different movements, etc. But there's really not even time in 200 hours, if you're going to be training teachers, to explain the philosophy or to have to give context in depth. And what I think what we received from Mr. Desikachar was all of the techniques and practices of yoga, the breath, the movement, the attention games, the sound, etc. How all of those things are really coming up out of and are the embodiment of the principles of the philosophy. And then he explained, here's what the philosophy is. And, yoga is a couple 1,000-year-old tradition, at least. And there's at least 17 or 1800 years of written Sanskrit texts and other Indian language texts explaining the meaning of it and how it works and how it operates. So what I feel we got from Mr. Desikachar is, all right, this is what yoga is aiming to do. Let's call it freedom, or call it independence, or liberation, or something like that. Here's what that looks like in your everyday operating life if you're a beginner. Here's what that looks like if you're trying to recover from some sort of health issue, or your system is dis-ease or dysregulated, etc. Here's what it looks like after you've regained some balance in what you're trying to do. And there's another part there, which is, here's what it looks like if you're able to reorganize your life to support your yoga, right? So, and then there's a presentation of the techniques as a way of leading a person through a process towards freedom and independence. And all of the techniques and all of the things that we do in yoga are modified to meet the capability of that person, but they never lose the essence or the philosophy or the principles, even though they're very highly modified because a person is simply just beginning, or their health is in danger, etc.
I changed so much as a teacher taking a 500-hour training with you. The context, putting it in context, philosophically, the perspective of these tools not needing to be, this is the exact alignment you have to get in, and this is the goal of the practice. Like, that was the goal. When really it's a tool, and the goal is actually something quite different. And coming from a background where it was very athletic yoga without the philosophical context, we're all applying these very Western ideas of what we were doing and why we were doing and how it was supposed to work. And there was almost this, and this is maybe more specific to, the context I came from. Like, we teach it the hardest way first. And then if they can't do that, you have them modify. And it's like, wow, what a way to set someone up for failure. What a way to set someone up with, I'm not good at this, which I've heard from so many people. I was in the lobby and a lady came out of a class crying and frustrated because she's like, this is a beginner's class? And I was like, my heart broke for her, because no, it wasn't a beginner's class, although that's what they called it at that studio. And no, she didn't have the support of success. And it was so challenging because the teachers at a 200-hour level in the community I was in, it's just, they weren't even set up for success to be able to support those students in a way to honor where they were, to know that the function is what we're trying to achieve and we adapt the form for that function. And, teachers go through a 200-hour training and then you're kind of piecemealing your education together through workshops or intensives, or maybe you find a 300-hour, but the cohesiveness that Vini Yoga put together, where it's like, here's the foundation of yoga, this philosophy. And the tool is not first your hamstrings. The tool is not how open do you get your hips for your liberation, which is so much like, oh, all the emotions stored in your hips. No, everybody's different. The philosophy from Vini Yoga just gave so much more about, oh, we have these patterns we've built into and over our lives and experiences, and we apply these perspectives inappropriately. And I was like, this is the yoga industry I've been in, period. I didn't even know there was another way.
Yeah. The way Mr. Desikachar taught, he was operating from the root. And then, if you hold the root, then, and you know what the root is, then you're able or capable to go out any trunk or branch or limb or leaf and be there. This is what is missing in our yoga industry's context. You can turn on YouTube and Google any sort of technique. You got 1,000 different this is how you do it videos, and you get some videos that explain, well, do this for headaches, or do this for indigestion, or do this for pain in your hips or whatnot, etc. But what's missing is any kind of comprehensive context of the practice of yoga and how it all fits together. And for me personally, this is what made studying with Mr. Desikachar so intellectually satisfying, is that the body, the breath, the mind, behavior, emotions, spirituality, daily living, philosophy, etc. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of the ideas. They're all together in a cohesive, coherent unit, and you pull one and all the others come with it. And as you learn and lay down foundations in one, and then you start learning the other and laying the foundations in the other, and you start to see, oh, like this relates like that, and oh, this is mirroring that, and oh, this is why this technique in asana is being taught like this, etc. Because now here I am in breathing and pranayama, and you can see that the same principle holds true, and the manifestation of it is just a little bit different. And oh, that relates to the way that I interact with my wife. And, you can see the same sort of principle there. And it's just such it's wondrous, amazing. And yet it's largely, I don't want to say completely, but that might be the appropriate term, missing from our Western yoga industry again. Yeah.
Something you said about holding on to the root, right? There's something so powerful that Sir gave, that you are passing on, which is an education, experiential and informational. I don't just get loaded with information and then cognitively have to work it out. I'm feeling it. I'm experiencing it in my life. Really unique to me through my mentor relationship, through doing the same practice every day and building that pattern with the tools really unique to me, that really teaches perspective. And when I understood, and I feel like I'm still understanding, the perspective of yoga, having that lens on my life, on my practice, on my relationships, on my clients. You said it was intellectually stimulating. It allows also for such creativity because I can problem solve in ways where it wasn't like this, oh, your client's experiencing this, do this, do this, do this, done. No, this is the perspective to take on, someone that's dealing with these symptoms. And here's the individual that you're meeting. Could be myself, could be my partner, could be my father, could be, right? Here's what they're, the individual. And you meld from this perspective. And there's adaptation, there's flexibility, there's creativity in ways that wouldn't seem like yoga. I've given as like a mantra, and I know this is an inappropriate use of the term. That's just like your opinion, man, from The Big Lebowski. I have given that to someone as something to like take a moment and because
I love it.
But you know what? For a little time it works. There was another like super weird creative things. I went through a time in my life where I needed to listen to AC/DC because it was enough like punch and enough goofy, don't really take it serious, that there was some lighthearted connection. And emotionally, that was the experience that was healing and moving forward. Granted, part of a larger context, but it allows you to see, right, when you have this perspective and understanding, there's so much flexibility in how you see the science of experiences, as you say it. All these different tools, these lifestyle tools.
This is what we try to do in our programs. We want to have both the informational and the experiential sides, right? Just like you're saying, if you have somebody who has all of the information, but they've never done it, that is not going to be very helpful. And if you get all the information, but you don't know how to apply it to your life, that also is not going to be very helpful. So, and almost everything we do, the 2-hour workshops or these little short series classes we do, we don't require it, etc. But in everything else that we do, the programs all have, everybody is assigned to a one-to-one mentor. Everybody gets a personal, individual teacher. And the role of that teacher at first is to help the person get their personal practice established, right? And when you get your personal practice established, that means I am doing something with my system. Could be body, breath, and attention, or it might just be breathing, or it might just be movement, etc. But doing something with my system, the same thing every day. And when you have your own teacher, your own guide helping you to implement that, then it can be completely revised, completely tailored to what is your need and what is it that you're trying to accomplish. How does that, and how are you going to get to there? Like, this question, like, if the yoga works, what happens? I can say, no, I have a deeper relationship with God. I can touch my toes. My relationship with my kid is better, or like, whatever the thing is, like, how are you going to get to that manifestation? You have to have a guide helping you do it.
It's so much in our culture. And I think that's something that the yoga industry, Western yoga industry has taken on, where it's like, do what feels right. And so often it's like, well, I'm doing what I know. It's doing what I like. And doing what I like is not always good for me. Sometimes that's a lot of avoidance. And it can actually be harming. And it can just be reiterating patterns that might be inappropriately applied. One of the best relationships of my life is Marcel, my mentor. I can't believe it's been 12 years. Monthly.
Yeah.
He has seen me through so much. Like really good times and really not good times. And having that external relationship, I mean, it is therapeutic. He's not my friend, although I tell him I love him all the time, right? There's a lot of affection. There's a lot of kinship there. But he's not telling me and divulging about his life. He's there for me when we're together. He's there to remind me about me, call me out on my stuff. And he does it in a very gentle, loving way. I don't know if I have the temperament for what Mr. Desikachar gave some things to hold Chase to the fire a little bit. But we're very different people. So why would it be the same? But yeah, my relationship, Marcel, which is also, and there's no way to pull it apart, my relationship to my daily practice.
Right.
My relationship to me every day.
Yeah.
Where I'm not, what feels good this morning? This kind of, it's set, it's established. And I'm getting feedback and I'm getting support. And it changes when it needs to change. Because over 12 years, that's changed a lot in many different directions.
Yeah.
But to be held by myself in my practice and in that ongoing relationship keeps the yoga living in my life and the perspective living in my life in a way that 15, 17 years of being in a yoga studio couldn't. It just didn't have the designed capacity to do that.
No, a yoga studio has a different setup and a different goal, different function.
Has a lot of good service. I mean, like this is a hard conversation about the yoga industry in a lot of ways, and God bless it.
Yeah, of course. Those sentiments that you were just expressing towards your mentor, your teacher, Marcel, I have the same feelings and experience with Mr. Desikachar. He really enabled me to move out of several situations in my life that I think I would still be stuck in 20 years later, 15 years later, if it had not been for his guidance and probing and prodding, etc. If it had not been for his prodding. So the one-on-one mentorship is not all just goody, better. You know, it has really the potential for the most meaningful of relationships. And you know, with the things that happen in our programs, everybody gets a mentor, everybody gets a teacher, and then that relationship is expected to last way beyond the length of the training, and be something that, you know, the joke we have at the end of our programs is, or at the end of our trainings is, now you can begin studying whatever the training was. The yoga therapist training is 4 years and it's 1,000 hours, etc. And at the end, okay, now you're qualified to begin your studies. Go forth and study this yoga, therapeutic application of yoga, etc. Right? Well, you have a guide still. You have somebody who can give you feedback, who can suggest, well, I don't think you need to do this workshop or training. I think you ought to do, you know, whatever it is.
It's amazing because Marcel, he doesn't tell me what to do. I mean, he gives me a practice. Mm-hmm. There are times where he's like, just tell me what you're doing for the practice, right? Or what's coming to you in the practice, and what is coming out of my practice is a good indicator for where we continue to grow. He's not guiding my life. He's not telling me what to do. He's, I want to say advisor, but it's not someone I go to like, okay, option A or option B, what do you think? He's like, you know, he just helps me uncover
It's so good. Yeah.
And he just waits for me to be like, okay, here's where it is. And he's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
I remember, I remember crying. And Marcel, you're so clear.
It's true.
I don't feel very clear.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah. It's so true. Like a good teacher, a good mentor, they don't tell you what to do. They help you find it on your own. And then when you have found it, no matter how you feel about it, they help you to recognize it. And that's a priceless relationship, right? That's a relationship that's so many of our things are we go to people and, well, what do you think? And, what would you do if you were me, etc. No, that is not this relationship. This relationship is, well, here are the principles of yoga, and here's what yoga is saying about who we are and our relationship to the world and why we get stuck, etc. And here's what to do about it, right? So then the guide gives you things, practices to do that help you to uncover why you're stuck and to see what is your next step. And then you get another practice or a revision of the practice to support you in making that step. And then when you get on to the other side of that, and there's a development possibility or a development range, you get another revision of the practice or a different practice altogether to help you with that development. And then you'll get stuck again. And the practice is revised, etc. Because there's this is an unfolding of who we are, and if yoga works, we end up authentically ourselves. There is no generic one size fits all form for how to do that. There's a structure of like, here's how the process works, and here's how the tools can be utilized. And then when you go with a skilled, when you're with a skilled practitioner or someone who understands both you and the process and the tools, so much can happen. It's very interesting. Meg, I want to ask you, when people are coming to you in your role as a student advisor, what do they typically ask, or what are they interested in, or like what's your role? What do you do?
Yeah, I love talking with people about their yoga and their experience, because people that are attracted to the Vinny yoga tradition and people particularly attracted to Chase Bossart already have experienced something wondrous in their yoga, whether they're coming out of pain or they've experienced that yoga has changed something in them and they want more. Those are usually the people I talk to. There's a good level of familiarity with yoga, and it's all kinds of people that are interested in, it intersects so much of other things that we label. We label self-help, we label health coach, we label energy work, we label mindfulness and meditation. And so people come from really diverse, wonderful backgrounds, but they're all seekers, and they all want to uncover something for themselves. And sometimes they don't know what they want to do with it. And that's kind of where our talk starts. Where are you? What's going on? What lights you up? What's a good next step in the personal journey and the education? And that may be really just getting a mentor, because that's an amazing shift for many, many people. For some, it's more an organized program and a deeper dive of study. And although we have all these workshops, really there's something about being in a longer structured program that really supports, dare I say, the work required. Because it's easy to bump up against our uncomfortable pieces and be like, oh no, I'm fine. That was enough. Thanks. That's a little sensitive. Or being held, right, in a cohort training or held with your mentor where, you can bump up against those, oh, it's uncomfortable, and still be held in a way that you can work through it, right? There's something in coming into balance and then the healing, which I feel like is like a back and forth throughout my life personally. Oh, I'm in balance. Oh, look, I've healed some stuff. Oh, I'm in the hole again. Oh, it's the same root. It's the same pattern I'm dealing with. Well, great. We're familiar. Okay. So I run into people that are kind of like in this trajectory of, like, I love that you're laughing. Laughter and tears. There's a lot of that in the yoga tradition. There's a lot of support where people are like, there's something here. And there's something that's extremely supportive in the educational component and in the individualized held component that we really support people in all kinds of ways.
I love it. It's so good. I think of our institute, I think of it as being a place where people who want to go deeper, that could be intellectual understanding of how does this all fit together, or that could be the spirituality of yoga, or that could be I want to refine my teaching, or it could be like, I just see that the yoga is helping me and I want to do more. I did a 200-hour teacher training and I like my teacher a lot, but I see their limitations and I would really be interested in finding a place where I can put it all together and understand more about like what I'm doing. And, for me, your role is really about like, this person comes in, well, what's best for them? It might
giving them some options. It's not like, okay, here's the prescription. It's like, it's a much more of a discussion.
Yeah.
And room for them to sit. And so often our conversations are still based around asking that person depends on the person, always. Not calculate what the end goal is. Because some people will be like, I need to get B to C to D, and you're going to help me get B to C so that I can, and it's like, okay. But there's also some people that it's like, I'm not sure, but I have this feeling. And so often, like, usually there's this part of a conversation where I'm talking with someone and it's like reminding them, like, you got to trust that there's something in there that knows, and you may not know why it's telling you what it's telling you. And it may not be real clear where that trajectory is going to take you, but that's the yoga.
Yeah, that is exactly.
Take the program, don't take the program, meet with a mentor, maybe not. But like, is there something in there that's telling you what the truth is for you in this moment?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic. Super. Well, Meg, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been fantastic to be interacting with you all these years, and I look forward to it continuing for many more. Thanks for sitting down with us today. All right.
Many more. Thank you, sir, for all that you've shared and continue to share.
My pleasure. See you soon. Bye-bye.